Hello everyone and welcome to another Star Wars figure review. Once again today we're going to take a look at some more figures from the Mission Series 2 packs from Hasbro, and this time around we're going to take a look at one from The Empire Strikes Back, possibly one of the most iconic scenes in cinema history, and it features the father-son duo of Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker. Now, like I've said in my previous Saga Legends and Mission Series reviews, these figures aren't for everybody. They're poorly articulated. They don't use the best sculpts that Hasbro have ever done, but they're a nice nostalgic throwback to the original Kenner days of the 5 points of articulation vintage figures, and I like them. As novelty items, they do the job, and as I've said before, for first time or young collectors, these are perfect ways to introduce these characters to your collections. So again, if you're looking to pick up some Star Wars figures for the first time, these are very cheap, very affordable figures, and they're pretty good as well. They're reasonable interpretations of the characters from the films. Obviously, not everybody has the budget for the 6-inch line or the premium Black Series line, so as cheap toys, emphasis on that word toys, these, they do the job, and I really like them. So we'll talk about their pros and cons in a little bit more detail in just a bit. But before we do, we're going to take a look at the packaging that these guys come in. Now, like with Darth Sidious and Yoda that I gave you a look at in my previous review, for carded collectors, you've got a choice, because this pack comes in two variations of packaging. It comes in this one, which is of course the 2013 Revenge of the Sith style branding, which has Darth Vader at the top, and of course has that very Mustafar inspired feel to it. Or, it's available, and a sneak peek coming up guys, in the new Star Wars Rebels packaging. Now, we know that Luke Skywalker probably doesn't appear in Rebels, at least in this form he doesn't, but it's nice that the Rebels packaging is sort of becoming the new line look. As you can see, I've picked up one of the Rebels sets already, and I'll be back to give you a look at that in a future video. But as I said, you do have two packaging options with this pack. So, if you're a carded collector and you're keeping this one in the package, it's up to you really how you display it, because you've got two options as to how it looks carded. So there you go. Just thought I'd share that with you. But as you can see, this is indeed the packaging that I've picked this set up in. And for me, it makes more sense because you've got Darth Vader on the card and Darth Vader's in this pack. As you can see, on either side of the box, we have an image of Darth Vader on one side and Luke Skywalker on the other. On the back, again, we've got a still image from that very iconic scene in The Empire Strikes Back, where Darth Vader reveals his, fatherhood of Luke, if that's the right term. And as you can see underneath there, you've got the description of the scene as well. Along the bottom, we've got other characters available in the line. As you can see, we've got Obi-Wan and Grievous, Han and Chewie, and Obi-Wan and Darth Maul from the Clone Wars. Now, as I said, I have picked and chosen some of these sets. I've left some of them hanging on the pegs, and then others I've decided to pick up. They're not for everybody, as I said. Some of the figures, do leave a little bit to be desired, but then other ones, such as these, are very, very cool, and in my opinion, are definitely worth the purchase, especially if you're in the UK and you live near an Asda supermarket, because at the time of filming this video at least, I'm not sure whether it'll still be ongoing now, Asda are currently selling these at 2 for £14, so that's essentially like buying one set and getting the other for half price. So highly recommend you check out your local Asda for a real good deal. Although if for whatever reason that offer has expired by now, then by all means check the link in the video description, because you can pick this set up and many, many more at staractionfigures.co.uk. I've had a lot of people ask me, how good their service is, if they're a trusted supplier. Put it this way, they're my #1 retailer online for Star Wars toys. They offer a fantastic service. I wouldn't dream of going anywhere else, so hit that link in the video description. So there we go, that is the packaging for Luke and Vader. And now let's take a look at the figures. And we're going to kick things off by taking a look at Luke Skywalker. Now, Luke Skywalker is the new figure in this set, as Darth Vader is a direct repack from the first wave of the Mission Series. And I'll get onto that in just a little bit. As you can see, this figure is actually really nicely sculpted. I'm a big fan of this one. As I said at the beginning of the review, they're a very nice throwback to the original vintage days, you know, back when Kenner held the license to produce Star Wars figures and the first movies had just come out. You know, they have this very nostalgic, old school feel to them, and I really, really like that. You know, I'm a big fan of it, and I think they've done a really good job with this figure. As you can see, that head sculpt is actually really, really good. One thing I have noticed about this one, if you spot it at retail, is that you definitely have to look through all the different ones on the pegs to get the best one in terms of paint applications. I found a few Luke Skywalkers hanging on the pegs that had really wonky eyes and just awful paint apps on the head, so do be careful when picking your set from the shelves. This one, as you can see though, isn't too bad, and as I said, I really do like that head sculpt. It's a nice likeness to Mark Hamill, who's of course the actor who plays Luke, and all in all, not a bad sculpt whatsoever. The paint applications are good, so yeah, no complaints there. As you can see, he is indeed wearing his Bespin fatigues, so you've got the belt sculpted on there, you've got the pouches on the suit, you've even got a functioning holster, which was a nice and welcome surprise. If you remember back to the first wave of the Mission series, if you picked any of them up, there was a Jango Fett figure released, and obviously he had the holsters on the legs, but you couldn't slot the pistols in them, and that was very, very disappointing. So obviously it looks like Hasbro have gone back and revisited that and decided to make those functioning so that you don't have to have Luke holding onto the blaster all the time. I'll just take the blaster out for you and show you in the hands of Luke. As you can see, it's a really nicely sculpted weapon. I've got some great detail on there. Hope it shows up on camera for you. There we go. Very, very nice weapon indeed. And as you can see, Hasbro have actually done away with the trigger on this one so that Luke can hold it, which is really good. He also comes with his lightsaber as well, which again is really nicely sculpted, even down to the small hook on the end of the hilt, which sadly can't be removed from the blade and attached to the belt, but it looks cool nonetheless. Really nicely sculpted lightsaber there. As you can see, the rest of the figure is nicely sculpted as well. Again, not the best paint applications in the world, you know, there's no weathering on this guy or anything like that, so he lacks that sort of depth and added touch of realism, but for all intents and purposes, it's a good toy. I want to really put emphasis on that word because that is essentially what these are. They're for younger kids, they're for, you know, young collectors, first-time collectors. They are toys, but they're very, very good. So there we go. That is Luke. I think I've just about covered everything with him. Definitely the pick of the set from this Mission Series pack. So there is Luke Skywalker. Now let's take a look at his daddy. Let's take a look at Darth Vader. Now he's a little bit dark, so I'm just going to brighten the screen up for you just a little bit. Pick up some of that detail on this figure. Now, as I said at the beginning of the review, Darth Vader is indeed a direct repack, very similar to Yoda from the last Mission Series pack that I gave you a look at. This time around, Darth Vader is repacked from the very first wave of the Mission Series line. The first Vader was released with a Seeker droid, and there are some very subtle differences once again between these two figures. And as always, or not as always because I've only just started doing this really, we're going to do a side-by-side comparison. Now, the only major difference between these two figures is the fact that, as you can see, this one here is the first release, and it has the coloured chest box. You know, all the buttons on the chest box are all painted, all nice and look very cool. This one is missing all those paint applications. Not entirely sure what's going on there, whether that was intentional or whether it's just a lack of insight on Hasbro's part, but all the buttons and all the painted detail on that chest box is missing. And as you can see, it looks like someone's packed this figure in the box while the paint was still wet, and you've got these horrible silver streaks up the chest, which just looks bad. You know, that's really bad quality control on the part of Hasbro, and probably my only real issue with this figure. I'm not quite sure why they decided not to paint the chest box, but you know, it is what it is. But obviously it makes the original release the better figure to pick up. So there we go. Not entirely happy about it, but it doesn't detract too much from the figure. So there we go. Those are the two figures side by side. Once again, this one is the Mission Series Wave 1 figure, and this is the brand new one. So let's take a look at him in a little bit more detail. As you can see, he does come with his trademark red bladed lightsaber, which, like with most of the weapons in this line, is very nicely sculpted. You've actually got some paint applications on this lightsaber, which you didn't get with Darth Sidious and Yoda, so that's a nice welcome addition. As you can see, the helmet isn't 100% accurate, you know, it's not the Black Series Wave 5 version, that's for damn sure, but it's not a bad figure, and again, like with Luke, it's a nice throwback to the original vintage days back in the 70s and 80s. In terms of articulation, Darth Vader isn't exactly packed to the brim, but he does move around, you know, as much as you'd expect him to from this line. He has a swivel neck, swivel shoulders, and swivel hips, and like with Darth Sidious, as you can see, those robes are indeed sculpted to the legs. Basically, this means that this Vader is probably one of the best ones to fit inside the TIE Advanced X1 Starfighter if you've got one, because those soft goods robes don't get in the way, so he should sit nice and snugly inside the cockpit there. Again, you know, being a very limited figure, he doesn't have much to talk about, but you know, you can get this guy in some decent poses. I like how he's got the open palm, so he's sort of saying, "I am your father." And then Luke's there all like, "No, you're not." But he is, sadly, so there we go. So yeah, a reasonable figure. Not the best Darth Vader by any means, but again, for first-time collectors or for young kids, great way of adding this guy to your collection. So, you know, I wouldn't necessarily recommend Darth Vader from this set, but Luke Skywalker for sure is definitely the pick of this pack. I'm just going to bump the brightness down just a little bit for you while we take another look at Luke. Again, he's a really cool figure, and once again, just for nostalgia factor, you know, I'm a big fan of this guy, and for that reason alone, I'd recommend picking up this entire set. It's really, really good for the most part. It features two iconic characters, so even if you're just a casual movie fan and you're looking to add some Star Wars characters to your collection, look no further than these guys, because they are very, very cool. So that's going to do it for Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader from the Mission Series 2-pack range. And we'll be back to give you a look at some Lego and Black Series and Rebels and all that sort of stuff in some of my future reviews. I've got absolutely tons lined up for you. Had a very exciting delivery today from Star Action Figures, no less. So, you know, can't wait to share all those with you, and, you know, many more reviews to come. So thank you for watching this review, guys, and until next time, keep collecting, and may the Force be with you.